Hey everyone, it's Leslie, and I went to edit this video and realized I did not do an intro. So here we are doing my intro for this video. I was so concerned with making cinnamon rolls that I just sort of got jumbled up. So you've probably seen the title of this video is Shopping My Shelves, and this is going to be a new series that I hope to start. And my plan is to take a look at these shelves here that are behind me once a month and pick a couple of books that should go onto my immediate to be read pile. Now, I don't do well with TBRs. I don't do well telling myself what to do or feeling like I have to, read X, Y, and Z in a certain time period. I'm very much a mood reader, and so that's why I'm only gonna pick, hopefully, ideally, one or two books a month from these shelves. But the reason that I'm doing this, I'll kind of talk through and explain through this video. My goal is to focus a little bit more on these books here that I have and get them read, because I own all of these books, as you can see, that I have never read before, and that's kind of ridiculous. I'm gonna give you a quick little tour of what these shelves look like, what's on them, and then kind of remind myself, hopefully, of what's here and get myself excited for it again. So these shelves here are my main to be read shelves, and I do have them organized somewhat. Probably never do a bookshelf tour because it's insane. It's ridiculous how many books I have, and these, like I said, these are primarily books that I have not read. This top shelf here, I have read a majority of those. That shelf is a lot of special editions and series that I like a lot. Let me walk you through how I generally sort of have these organized. So this first black shelf here, this is my oldest shelf, and it's generally just fiction. This top shelf here is classics, and then we move over to this shelf here, which is a little random. I have nonfiction, and I try to keep it a little bit separate by genre. So I have a lot of science, nonfiction, history. Obviously the horror manga up there, it does not count, but we're just going to pretend that that's more well organized than it is. I also have short stories on that shelf. As we move down, I have more nonfiction, some nonfiction that leans towards essays and memoirs. Then moving down, more nonfiction, kind of miscellaneous. I have some manga there. And then as we move into these lower shelves here, these are just general fiction. I do have some, you can see some more nonfiction back there, but there's a lot of just general fiction. It's all adult as well. I have it mixed up, fantasy, contemporary, literary, all those are all mixed up together. Then as we go into this next shelf, you'll see that trend continues with a couple of shelves of just general fiction. I tried to keep my series together, and so that's where these two shelves here start, is some series, more series that I have here. As you can tell, I have a habit of buying series that I have not finished, though. I really need to stop doing that. But that's sort of the purpose of this whole video anyway. So then my final shelf, this smallish one, I have, like I said, some special editions and just books I have multiple copies of. And then this is primarily where I put all of my YA, my young adult books. Although I did get rid of a bunch recently. I went through all of these shelves and got rid of books that I just was not interested in reading anymore. Especially, if in comparison to some of these books that I am still very, very much interested in, even though I've owned them for a few years. There were definitely books on these shelves that I did not care about, and I'm really leaning away from young adult books lately. I just don't care. Really, I think is the issue. So these top two shelves, mainly these are the survivors. And then as we move down, I've got a couple more series, some romance, some horror, and then some more general just mess of books. I'm going to go through these shelves and try to just remind myself of what I have here. So let's get started. books from that little exercise, and I know I said I was just gonna pick one or two, but I have a lot of good books down there on my shelves that I have never read before. So I'm just gonna like share the ones that I picked up off my shelf. And then I also have some like miscellaneous little thoughts about why I'm doing this project and consumerism in book spaces in general. Let me show you first the books that I picked up off my shelf. So the first one is A Ladder to the Sky by John Boyne. And I picked this one because this is, you can tell it's a book of the month edition, and it's from November of 2018. So I've had this book for just over 4 years and still haven't read it. So it sounds like it's about a man who's very ambitious and wants to become like a celebrated writer, but is kind of full of crap. And I've heard good things about this author before. I also heard some like there may have been some controversy with him at some point. I don't know. The next book that I picked up off of my shelf is The History of Love by Nicole Krauss. And so it says that Leo Gursky taps his radiator each evening to let his neighbor upstairs, or his upstairs neighbor, know he's still alive, but it wasn't always like this. In the Polish village of his youth, he fell in love and wrote a book. 60 years later, and a half world away, 14-year-old Alma, who was named after a character in that book, undertakes an adventure to find her namesake and save her family. I want to say that I bought this like 7 or 8 years ago. I think it was quite a while ago. And it looks like it was published in 2005. Seems like maybe a pretty emotional book, which I can definitely be in the mood for. The next book that I bought is actually, it's a used copy of Girl with a Pearl Earring by Tracy Chevalier. And I've never read anything by Tracy Chevalier before. I haven't seen the movie that was made of this book either. Oh, there's somebody who wrote their name in it. M. Bates. There's a couple of notes in here. That's so neat. So they wrote down a DVD that they wanted to pick up, and then a nonfiction book with the library call numbers in it. Here, let me see if I can show you. So that's interesting. Gave me some little references for more information on this topic. The final book that I picked up off my shelf is actually, I haven't had it as long as these others, but I got it last year. It's Borderlands, A Journey Through the History of Ukraine by Anna Reed. And this is nonfiction. I think the title is pretty self-explanatory, but it's one of those things where like you want to know more about a current event, and so you buy a book about it and then it sits on your shelf for months and months. I want to be better about like if I buy something nonfiction to like make myself more well informed on a specific topic, then I actually read it like when it's relevant, like it's always relevant. You know what I mean? I have many reasons for wanting to do this project. The main one is just that I'm trying to stop buying so many books. So I have over 1,000 books that I have not read. I haven't actually counted them. I've been trying to keep track of them on my Goodreads. I have a shelf specifically for own unread books. And I want to say that right now that shelf on Goodreads is at about 1,100. I'm constantly finding books on my actual physical shelves that I somehow never put into my Goodreads. So I really don't know is basically the gist. I really am not sure how many books I actually own that I have not read. I also am just trying to like get out of the habit of buying so much stuff all the time. I've always had an issue with telling myself no. I think is the if I'm being honest, no, I always have some good excuse. And I think with books especially, there's always a good excuse to buy a book. Like they're always, you know, informative and entertaining and enriching. A lot of positive, you know, connotations and associations that we have with books, like rightly so. That for me personally has served to give me an excuse all the time to buy all the books that I always want ever. I mean, you've seen like the results of that fact. I have this shelf here. This is my immediate TBR shelf, and then I also have another shelf that I'll insert here. So I have two of these white, like shorter white bookshelves in my living room that I consider my immediate TBR, but I don't want that massive pile of books in my room to also go forgotten. There are a lot of reasons why I buy a lot of books and just in general overspend, but I think that a lot of it is driven by just newness and a sense of like excitement with new things and new ideas. My goal with this project is to kind of reinvigorate that sense of newness with the books I already have. So there are a couple of creators who do similar things. So I know that Kelly Gooch is a makeup YouTuber, and she has a series where she shops her stash. So I was thinking that that would be a way for me to kind of get that excitement of, you know, that feeling you get when you walk into a bookstore and it's just like it's just like this nice little sigh of relief. For me, at least, it's like comforting and exciting, and you know, all the books, it's like where all the books live, and it's so nice. I want to get that feeling and be able to replicate that with the things that I already have, with the books that I already own. So this is my attempt at doing so. I really have a craving for cinnamon rolls today. And so, as I mentioned, I am not good at telling myself no, so I'm going to make some, and I'm going to bring you along with me while I do that and just have a little chat about bookish spices and consumerism and special editions and things like that. So I've been thinking a lot about consumerism just in general, but especially with, you know, this new project I'm trying to embark upon. I'm also trying to, you know, think about consumerism in book spaces more specifically. Over the years, I've been a subscriber to a lot of different bookish boxes, and I have like a love-hate relationship with them, and I'm always like subscribing to them and then canceling it and then subscribing and canceling, because it just feels like it contributes to this excessive sort of mindless consumption of books as like material objects rather than, you know, books as art necessarily, or as having a capacity to teach us something. I guess I overthink things sometimes because I know that it's not necessarily that deep. I'm aware of this. Personally, just have a lot of things I'm trying to work through with regards to salt. There we go. With regards to like spending and like overspending and buying things that I don't really need. And I think that the like bookish communities are not by any means immune to that same sort of like rampant consumerism that you see in like the makeup community. And I wouldn't even say that there's like a specific culprit here. I think it's more about the culture of like consumerism that you see on social media. So there's always, you know, somebody who has a little bit more, like their thing is just a little bit better than yours. Oh, I need butter. There's just this idea on social media that you have to, like I said, have the newest thing. In the book community, I think in particular, like the newest, prettiest edition of whatever book, even if this book has been out like for 10 years or something like that. I guess my thinking just in general is that we tend to see a lot of the same special editions as well. That's another thing that makes me kind of question why we're doing this. Like, why do we have all these different special editions and such? Because a lot of times these editions that are coming out like already exist. Like, we already have them. We already have all of these different books in all these different forms. And it really makes it feel like a money grab, especially when you have these boxes that come with all of this like bookish stuff in them. And again, I'm not calling anybody out or anything like that. I mean, if anything, I'm calling myself out. But it just makes me wonder, like, why are we doing this? It's not as if the books that we're getting are different than the ones we already have, right, in these boxes and these special editions and stuff. So I have my my dough for my cinnamon rolls. Like, I get that it's all a business too. Like, I know that. I know that publishers have to make money, authors need to make money and deserve to make money, you know, off of their work. And I have never worked in publishing, so I don't know everything that goes into that. I mean, people deserve to make a living. I guess I'm questioning what we're being sold. And there's a whole other issue when you think about like resale on a lot of these things. Like, special editions of boxes or books can sell for way more than they were originally, sold for by the company, whichever company produced them. What am I doing? I need to measure this. And so in a way, it's like kind of creating a racket for them. Yeah, this is too long. And like I said before, there is definitely like value in owning these things for a lot of people. There's a lot of butter in this. I think I might have done too much. And I just think it's worth, remembering that, if we decide to buy a book and it takes us years to read it, or if we buy a book and we're actually, being sucked in by the cover or the marketing or some person squealing about it on social media, then I think that it could help us just be more conscious of the way that we're spending our money. Here we are. There's never going to be a shortage of books. There's never going to be a point at which like we run out, which is great, but also maybe like contributes to this like extreme also just sense of like FOMO. And I think that sometimes book spaces almost get a pass from this idea of being like hyper consumerist because of what I was saying before, that books are always a good idea. Right? Books don't come with this sort of stigma that something like makeup or clothing or shoes do. Books get the benefit of being, intellectual and stimulating and entertainment and informative, and they have all of these really positive connotations. But I think that we're seeing a lot of the kind of consumerist culture and overspending and just fetishization, honestly, on social media. And I do not absolve myself of this in any way. Clearly I have my own issues with like overspending, especially, on certain things like books. I just broke my nail off. I do wonder, like, what is the point of having all of these books if we're not using them? And I also was thinking I want to just sort of challenge the idea that we are actually over consuming, because if we're not actually using the things that we have, then how are we consuming them? If I own 1,000 books and I've never read them, then I'm not really consuming anything. I'm just hoarding it. There is definitely benefit, in my opinion, of owning that many books. Even if I haven't read them, I do gain a sense of like comfort from them, and there is that sense of like possibility in every story that I'm going to encounter. In every nonfiction book, there are things that I know I'm going to learn that are going to enrich my life, and I do spend a lot of time reading. I have read over 100 books a year for the past 5-6 years now, and so it's not like I'm buying these things and then not reading them or not using them. But social media, though, I think is making it way too easy to do this thoughtlessly and to buy books without really ever having the intention, honestly, of reading them. So with special editions, you probably noticed in my clip of my bookshelves earlier, there are certain books that I own multiple copies of. And what for? It's not like I'm going to sit there with 5 copies of Kingdom of Ash in front of me reading from all of these copies at the same time, but I still have them, and they do still bring me a certain amount of joy because they have, their special editions, they have like special extra chapters, or they have art or something like that in them. I think that those things, like, they do have a place in our lives, for sure. They have a place in my life. I just want to be a lot more intentional about the way that I buy those things and how I spend my money, because it's really easy, like I said, to fetishize books. I kind of wonder sometimes if that is what is happening in book spaces when we do a book haul and then never actually read the books, or when we get all these special editions of books that we've already read. Something I'm guilty of is buying an entire series without even knowing if I like the author or if I like the series. It's just the idea of ownership of that object, which is why I said that there's this aspect of fetishization with books now, because it's not always about the process of reading. It's more about the object itself and the feeling, that ownership, that looking for the object and purchasing it and receiving it and owning that object. There's something about that process that has almost become more influential in public, at least, than perhaps it should be. And again, I'm not gonna like blame, point fingers or anything. I think that this is a broader like cultural kind of social issue. But I just want to mainly be aware of how it's impacting me and how my decisions are being influenced by the things that I see online or when I go into a store, and really thinking about, not just, where does a new lip gloss fit into my life, for example, but where do these books fit into my life? When can I reasonably expect to have read them? Because I think that at this point, I have so many books in my house that if I did not buy another book for 5 years, maybe even 6 or 7 years, I would be fine. I would be able to continue my rate of over 100 books a year and not run out of things to read, which is a little ridiculous. Let's be honest. We don't value books traditionally just because they look nice. I suppose that there is, for a lot of books, a sort of status symbol in obtaining them. Maybe that's another issue to cover. So yeah, I don't think I really have a conclusion to this. I don't have any specific outcome or, implications of any of my thoughts really, other than how they apply to my life, which is seeing the way that, the things I'm subscribed to, the things that I'm buying, and then looking at my actual day-to-day habits and the way I live, and seeing, do I need to actually keep a lot of these things around? Do I need to buy XYZ? And this goes not just for books, but just kind of in general. And I think it's good to be aware. I don't think that this kind of culture is going to change anytime soon. And by the way, this is not just a book subscription box issue. I think that this goes beyond that into sort of fandom spaces as well, where a lot of our interests are being sort of commodified. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. And I've been having these thoughts for quite a while because, seeing the things that come into our lives and frankly are not much use. I'll probably continue to have thoughts on it because I've been involved in, bookish communities in one way or another for years now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. It's an ongoing conversation. Let me know in the comments actually what you think about this whole phenomenon of these special editions and new covers of books that are already extreme bestsellers. And like I said, I recognize that it's a business. They need to make money. Artists, writers deserve to make money. I don't like feeling like I'm being marketed to. It feels really blatant in a lot of cases that it's not so much about quality as it is about quantity. Otherwise, I feel like we would just see more diversity in what's being promoted. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you subscribe to any boxes or buy special editions, own multiple copies of books, own far more books than you can reasonably read? And how does that make you feel? I'm curious. I'm curious if I'm the only one who is simultaneously comforted by my bookshelves and sort of guilt-stricken by my bookshelves. I will see you in the comments and in the next video. Bye.